All right. Third episode of the current Revolt podcast. Super excited about today's show because I think we've got kind of a rare guest. It doesn't happen very often that somebody on the right and somebody on the left are able to sit down and have a conversation with each other that doesn't involve protests or signs or mace or whatever it is that happens nowadays. So today's episode I've got Zach Freeman. Zach is on Twitter. Zach at Zach Runs Things on Twitter. So at Zach Runs Things, and known as the Concerned Parent in North Texas. Zach, tell us a little bit about your page and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'm a concerned parent in North Texas, and I most of what I do is satirical videos talking about something that's happening, typically in North Texas, but sometimes Texas wide. Might be in another district or another area of the state, or something statewide like vouchers.
Yeah.
So I just play a different version of myself because in real life I mean I am a concerned parent just in a different way than the guy in the videos is concerned. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much what I do, and I
Gotcha.
seems like seems like some people like it, so that's good.
Yeah, so we had a really great discussion before we started recording here, and I mentioned how we kind of got that we've got a couple of things in common. One, we're both in North Texas, but we both operate with some satire. And I was telling you, I shared one of your tweets with a boomer right wing chat I'm in, and I can't remember what exactly the tweet was. And somebody replied like, "Yeah, this guy gets it. Like, love this guy." And I was just like, "This is satire. Like, not exactly on the same team." And you were telling me a story. You please repeat it, like about your kind of your run-ins with satire, your experiences with writing satire.
Yeah, I think I get similar reactions. I feel like, about, I don't know, 90% of the responses I get are people who get it. And so either people, what I would say moderate and to the left saying, yeah, this guy's, framing this in a way that's funny, but it's actually a serious issue. And then sometimes I feel like I work really hard to make sure everything I say is accurate. So I'm not exaggerating what the actual thing that's happening is. What I'm exaggerating is the response. Calling everything woke, etc. So I will get like to what you said. People when I see uh, somebody's profile with the American flag and MAGA, Trump, God, country, and they're retweeting my thing right after they retweeted Alex Jones. I'm like, hell yeah, man.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, thanks for spreading the word. And then on the flip side, I do get people with the pronouns in the profile and Ukraine flag or blue wave, and they're coming on there to say this MAGA extremist. I hope nothing bad ever happens to him if he's going to talk about people like this, and I really enjoy both sides of that. Because
That's hilarious.
it's just funny to me, kind of what you said that. Well, I think you implied this maybe that just satire. Sometimes some people are so extreme that even trying to make a satire of them is difficult because they're just like you. You think you're satirizing them, and they're like, hell yeah,
Yeah, it's like you don't even need to add a spin to this. It's
yeah,
just consume it as is, and it's
yeah,
funny as is. Yeah.
yeah. You get it.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it's satire's kind of it's hard. Like we've gotten a lot of as far as Current Revolt does. And you brought up a good point. Like I should probably explain for people who are listening what we do. So Current Revolt, we are an online newsletter that just covers Texas politics. That's it. So nothing outside of Texas. And I like to say that we exist to just expose scams or fraud or things that we believe are fraudulent and shady or liars. And unfortunately, and a lot of people get upset, but unfortunately, that just happens to be nowadays with a lot of Republicans. Texas is a Republican-led state, and if you're not happy with something in Texas, generally, it's a Republican's fault. And so we do swing right quite a bit because there's a lot of bad people on the right, a lot of bad reps on the right. But we do expose things that happen as they happen, and that's just what we've been doing. We've been doing it for 4 years now, and I think we're quite good at it. But that's a little bit about us now. Zach, is it fair to label you as kind of like a moderate or a moderate leftist? Is that fair?
Um, I'd say moderate, left, yeah, left of centered, moderate, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. And you kind of mentioned earlier, like in Illinois, like in Chicago, which is where I'm from. Actually, I'm from Chicago.
Oh,
But
okay.
In Chicago, you'd be like a moderate, and in New York, you'd be like a moderate or maybe moderate right. But here in Texas, you're kind of like moderate left. Is that fair?
I would say in those places, California, I'd probably be, oh, this guy's, yeah, on the right. But in Texas, even sometimes feel like people think, oh, he's some kind of crazy leftist socialist, and I'm like, no, I think just Texas is pretty far right. That's it, compared to the overall spectrum. So yeah, I'd say overall nationally, I see myself more moderate center left kind of
Did
thing.
you?
Yeah.
So your Twitter's kind of you've got a lot of followers, and I think do you have a TikTok as well?
Yes, I do. Same
Gotcha.
same name.
And
At
I and,
Zach runs things.
and admittedly, I like you were trying to kind of bump up our Twitter or sorry, our TikTok. So I haven't checked your TikTok, so I don't know. Did you have quite a big following on TikTok? I imagine you
I
do.
have more on TikTok than Twitter. I have I don't know what it is at the moment, but over 20,000
Wow.
followers. I honestly don't understand TikTok fully, so I just put my videos on there. I don't know how to promote them or how to. I just put a bunch of hashtags, like every hashtag I can think of, and it seems like it works. I don't understand fully how they get, how something blows up or doesn't. Whereas on Twitter, you could see like, oh, that one big account retweeted it. That's what started this.
Right.
But
Yeah, you
on
don't know where the
TikTok,
engagement's
I
coming from.
can't tell who did who. You just suddenly start getting, tons of notifications. You're like, well, that one went off, but I really don't know why or how.
Do you have a specific video or story or event that like kind of blew up that did really well for you?
The first one that so before last summer, I was just straight local politics, school board races.
Hmm.
That's, like I said, I am a concerned parent in North Texas. So I was talking about, I live in Grapevine, Colleyville ISD, and I was just talking about our local school board races, and they were actually, moderately popular at the time. I thought, wow, it's hugely popular. Thousands of views on Facebook just with people that live here in my district. But I made one. We went on a family vacation. We did like a road trip, and we went to Chicago as part of that road trip. And I just made, honestly, just walking around, just saying random silly things in downtown Chicago, acting like I was, terrified while everybody was just playing. Uh, it was in Millennium Park. So where
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
the bean, there's these fountains, there's this huge playground, and I was just, making so like everybody's terrified. It's a hellscape. No one wants to come here. And that one was the first one that really blew up, and it got like 5 million views. JB Pritzker, the governor, retweeted it. So
That's
and then
awesome.
that one I think got big from uh, right wing accounts getting really mad about it. And I honestly
Hmm.
thought it was like just completely silly. I didn't cite statistics or make a point about gun violence. I didn't say there's no gun violence. I was acting like somebody from North Texas being afraid of all of Chicago and being in the nicest, most tourist friendly area and still being afraid. But people got really mad, and I think that's what
Yeah.
made it blow up. But also a lot of people loved it, so it was kind of people were very angry about it though. But that was the first one I feel like when people were interested in what I was
Yeah.
doing, and it's the least political to me of all the stuff I do and have done, and the one I spent the least time on. So that just shows you you spend all this
Yeah.
time on stuff, and people are like, ah, who cares? And then you just say something like, I can I can walk my bike, but not my dog, and people get pissed. So.
Yeah, satire is just a lost art in
Yeah,
politics now. People don't have a sense of humor. Like everybody's just got to stick up their butt like 24/7
I
on
think
both
that's
sides.
yeah. I think that that is pretty true. On people look at who's making the satire, and you know, I think read it, maybe read into it a little more. Like I said, I mean, I think whatever side you're on, I think we could agree that Chicago gets painted as like the whole town is terrifying and dangerous, and if you go there, you're going to get robbed and killed. And I was in Millennium Park in the
Hmm.
middle of the day, where everyone's just out hanging out, and I'm pretending to be afraid. I just feel like that's funny, regardless of what your politics are. But people didn't
Yeah.
agree.
And this yeah, and on that, like this is normal for any city, right? Like Dallas has its very dangerous parts, and then it's got its
Yeah.
very nicer parts, right? Like
Right.
I'm from Chicago. I grew up on the Lower East Side,
Okay.
which is incredibly dangerous, or
Yeah.
it's dangerous. It's not incredibly, it is dangerous. I went to visit my father last year, and going to bed, and I hear just gunshots, and I'm like, hey, is that fireworks or gunshots? He's like, oh, those are gunshots, and I'm like, oh, okay, thanks, Dad. Like he's just so casual about it, you know.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, like you said, there's parts of Chicago that are just beautiful. But people don't have a sense of humor, and it having a sense, being able to be self-aware and make jokes about yourself, I think is very important for being like a good quality human being. And a lot of
Yes.
people can't take a joke or even give a joke. Um,
Yes. Both. And I think taking a joke is also as important. I think, for me, if somebody makes fun of me, if they do a good job of it, that's like the stuff I most and like makes me laugh the most and
yeah,
want to repost is if somebody has a good burn on me.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
if it's I don't, people, I think people sometimes just equate being mean with being funny, and it's like that's not funny. You're just being a dick. But
yeah.
if
Like
it's
just
an
owning
actually
somebody
good
is not
burn,
funny.
like you
Yeah,
got to show respect to a good burn. So
for sure. So as I was looking at your Twitter, I noticed that you've got some blocks. Some people have blocked you. Steve Toth blocked you.
he's the first one. Yeah, I always
What was
see
the reason
people.
behind that?
I don't know. Um,
You
I
have no
think. I
idea.
mean,
You just
well,
realized one day he blocked you.
yeah, I think he's from New York, so maybe he's mad that I keep saying, New York native Steve Toth. Well, actually, I call him Steve Tooth, and I just go with I use the Donald Trump playbook of whatever dumb thing comes to my mind first. That's just the nickname,
Hey,
and
the
then
nicknames work though.
they work.
They
That's if
stick.
can both sides just acknowledge, you know what? He's the king of the nicknames, and he throws them out there. And sometimes he changes them. He workshops them, and that's what you got to do. And that's what I. So Stephen Tooth, there's nothing to do with his teeth or anything. It just is. It makes me laugh. If it makes me laugh, that's when I'm going to use it. So I just call him Stephen Tooth, and then I always say New York native Stephen Tooth. And I think I've used that gif of the salsa being made in New York City a few times. So that may be why he blocked me. But I mean, Bethany Van Doink, she's from New York. She hasn't blocked me. She's my representative. Maybe that she might not be able to block me legally because she is my representative. But
Right, right, maybe.
I respect the ones that don't. Like, Briscoe Kane. That guy, he can take a joke if anybody can. I've made fun of him a ton, and he'll retweet stuff that you say making fun of him. He's into it.
Briscoe's got one of the best, like, I don't want to say senses of humor, but he has the ability to take a joke and and not take it personal. Like he's just I
Yeah.
don't know if you've ever met, have you ever met him?
No, I mean, I'm pretty tall. I don't know. Even if I had been in the same room, I might not have seen him. But but no, I haven't met him.
Great guy. If you're ever in Austin, you should
Yeah,
swing by his like during session. You should swing by his
yeah.
office. Just like very pleasant person. I like that. I like that guy a lot.
I
But
didn't even think of that. You can just go and just like pop into people's offices.
yeah, yeah. I got a funny story. I was at the Capitol, man, during the impeachment of Ken Paxton,
Hmm.
and I was just visiting offices, and I walked. Briscoe's was one that I stopped by, and I walk in, and he's like, "You shoot? You got a gun?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You want ammo?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, I want ammo." He's like, "All right." He just gives me a box of 9 mil, and I like walk out of the Capitol with a box of 9 mil ammo. I'm like, this is Texas. Like you can literally walk into the state capitol and get ammunition. Like this is a very Texas moment right now. Um, it was great. Like I don't know if you knew this. If you have your concealed carry license, you can skip the security screening basically at the Capitol.
Whoa.
You just show
Really?
your license to carry. or your CHL, whatever,
Yeah.
and they scan it and you just walk right in instead
Oh
of like
wow.
going through like emptying your
Yeah.
pockets and through a metal detector. It's kind of interesting. It's almost backwards when you think about it, but I
I
love it
don't
because
know.
I skip
See,
every time.
yeah, this might be something I don't know if we agree or not, but this that might be something, I think I'm a I am a big fan of licensed concealed carry. I
Hmm.
do not have any problem with someone getting a license to conceal carry. I
You're not a
don't
fan of
agree
the
with open carry.
constitutional?
I'm not a fan of constitutional carry
Hmm.
or of open carry. I don't. I neither of those appeal to me as just a person that exists in the world. But license conceal carry, 100%. That is that just it just adds a level of you're showing that you're like obviously would be great to assume that everyone's a responsible citizen, but license and a conceal carry license, and then a license just to carry it all to have a gun. Great. That a- anyone can go get one. If you can't pass the test, or then you don't get one. I'm down with that.
See, I'm gonna get reamed for this, but I don't like open carry, and not probably for a completely different reason than you don't. I don't like open carry because it's cringe, like it's goofy. I think the majority of the time I see people open carrying, they look silly, unless it's a
Yes.
police officer or a fireman or security guard. If you're just like some dude and you're open carrying in like a Tom Thumb or whatever, do they even have Tom Thumbs anymore? Tom Thumb, like you look silly. And then strategically, it makes no sense. If somebody's going to commit a crime and they walk in and they see Bob Joe on aisle five and he's open carrying, who do you think is going to get shot first? I mean, that's just, I don't know. That's just in my head. So I don't like open carry for that reason. But obviously, I'm a 2A guy, so I do support constitutional carry. But I do have issues with I don't even think everybody should have the right to vote. So it kind of would conflict with the idea that I think everybody should be allowed to hold a handgun. Um,
Yeah.
so I kind of get what you're coming from, but I do disagree. I do
Yeah.
disagree.
Yeah. I mean, I I grew up in East Texas. It's not like you know, I don't have anything against guns. I also think, like you said, if you walk into a Tom Thumb and somebody's open carrying, that's also, again, we could assume they're good, but I feel like for police officers, it makes their job so much harder. If they're like, there's just a guy with a gun, I can't do anything. I guess we'll just wait and see if he does something.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I don't know. I've never had a lot of run-ins with people who are open carrying, but they've always been. I mean, on the few that I have, they've always been nice, just normal, regular guys who just like to carry their guns openly. And I just
yeah,
think, like I said, strategically, I think it's a bad idea. But you see a lot of these YouTube videos of like guys that'll purposely throw an AR on their back or their
yeah,
front, and then they'll walk around downtown. And then of course, people call the police. The police come out and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" They're like, "Well, it's my right. It's my right."
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's like, yeah, I get it. Actually, I do get it. Like stressing and letting the public know what their rights are is important, but at the same time, like I also understand that it's a little unnecessary. Like it's like, what's the point of this? Like it kind of reminds me of those sovereign citizens that get pulled over and they're like, I'm not driving, I'm traveling, or
yes,
whatever. It's kind
yeah.
of like on the same level.
This is so, one of my friends he's a ex police officer now, but he would always talk about sovereign citizens, like the
I
biggest
love
pain
those
in the
guys.
ass.
I love those guys. The YouTube algorithm is currently feeding me these, and my favorite part's when they get tasered. So I'm always like waiting for the ones that like where they get tased. Um, I love the YouTube algorithm. It gives me the goofiest stuff. It's like endless content. I pay for YouTube. That's how much I love YouTube. I
Well,
have the
I do want
subscription.
to say to something you just said about open carry is that I have not seen, you know, I honestly I can't think of a time that I have seen it actually. So it's a weird, it's one of these weird laws where it was like, no, we have to have this, we need it, and then I don't, I just you see videos of it, but I mean I live in North Texas. It's not like a bunch of libs, and nobody is walking around open carrying. It just doesn't seem
Yeah, it's
like
not a thing.
something. Yeah, it's not something people were really clamoring for. So it's kind of like one of these. I think it sounds like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, from where you're coming from, is on principle you support it, and in practice it seems kind of silly. And I think that seems to be borne out in how people reacted after it was passed. It's like, yeah, we got it. Well, I'm not going to do it. That would be weird of me.
Yeah, it
So,
was like alcohol to go. Do you remember when they passed that? It was like during COVID. Like you can go get like I remember testing this because we wanted it just passed. You can get liquor to go, and we went to Taco Cabana, and for a while Taco Cabana was offering like 10 different flavors of margaritas for like 10
hmm
bucks or something stupid. So me
hmm
and a friend went and we got all 10 and through the drive-through. And we got home, and when we drank it, when we got wasted, and it was disgusting. It was like a combination of like a disgusting sugar high and also being drunk on like cheap liquor. But like never did it again. Like there's no motivation to get like
yeah,
liquor to go. Like if you're already out, you're gonna go to the liquor store. It's cheaper. Why would you go to
yeah.
a So it's another one of those things where like everybody was so excited about liquor to go. Like everybody, like oh my, this is amazing. And then it was like actually this is kind of stupid. Like we don't actually need that. Um,
That's a great argument for just legalizing all the drugs.
oh man.
Like, there you go. Like, y-
Yeah, see, like,
everybody's gonna go nuts if you legalize all this stuff,
I don't know. I don't
and
know.
then
I
people will
mean,
be like, ah,
on a core level, I don't have a problem with marijuana. I just think that not everybody is, the average person, I think, is not capable of handling it. Like, the average person can't, maybe not the average, maybe I'm exaggerating, but a lot of people can't handle liquor as it is. And I would argue that
hmm
alcohol is probably worse than weed for sure. But it's already that's already bad as it is, and I don't think that Americans need another thing to get addicted to, right? And so like I wouldn't I support like people not being like thrown in jail for decades over small amounts of marijuana, right? But I just don't think that I don't think that most Americans and especially young adults can handle like it being legalized. That's my opinion on it.
fair. I think we can barely handle how much sugar we eat. So,
Oh,
can we
absolutely. Like
handle more drugs?
it's
But
insane.
yeah, I don't have. I I guess I don't. Since I don't personally struggle with any addictions, I guess I don't think about that as a potential concern. But it is a fair point that But that then you're getting into big government, man.
Right?
You're saying we the government has to step in for these people because they can't handle themselves.
I have an addiction to McDonald's. I'm actually eating it right now. I love McDonald's.
There's a
What
whole
would you?
documentary about that.
Yeah, I know. What would you say? You kind of describe yourself as like a moderate left. What would you say is your farthest left opinion?
Oh man,
Like the one thing that you're just like you would fight for hardcore. You agree with maybe the people on the very far left on. Or alternatively, let me ask you though, what would you say is your farthest right opinion?
I think my farthest right would probably be what we just talked about with guns, at least
Mm,
from the left. From what I see on the left, I think there's more. Um, it seems to me that the left is more focused on regulating guns and uh, people who buy guns than I am personally.
do you think it's because like the far left is more interested in completely eliminating the right to own guns, and you're more like it's fine provided that they're licensed and they're competent?
Yeah, I don't. I think it's a very small amount of people who would actually go as far as what you just said of completely eliminating the ability to buy guns.
Hmm.
I think there is this spectrum of, and I think in Texas it feels like to me we're all the way to the right of like everyone should be able to buy all the guns with no background checks and no license, and you should be able to walk around with them openly. And then on the that's the to me that's the farthest right position you could have, and that's kind of where we are. And then on the farthest left would be we should be like, is it Australia or New Zealand, where like there's no guns, nobody can have guns,
Right.
and I think there's much fewer people who think that. I think the majority of the left, from what I see, seems to be saying we need to limit the capacity, magazine capacity for these guns, and certain types of guns need to be more heavily regulated, and we need to raise the age for purchasing them. Um, I'm more like you should be able to buy a gun, but you should have to have a license, and it should be registered. So I don't know. Maybe that takes me out of it being a right position, but I feel like it should be registered. You should have a license, and if you want to carry it, great. You should also have a license for that. But that's yeah.
I definitely
I
think
think
that's a
probably
moderate position. I
yeah.
don't know, and I live in a political bubble where the majority of people I surround myself with have very strong right wing opinions, and because of that, we consume, the left wing content we do see is very extreme. So my general stereotype of the left is they want to ban guns completely and go to like what you said, like Australia style, where it's like you cannot get a gun, you cannot buy ammo, you can't get a gun, like complete elimination, you know. And so maybe that's not the case. Again, I don't have a ton
Yeah.
of left leaning friends. I do have a few, and the ones that I do have, like they want to completely ban guns.
Wow.
And we argue about this.
I have a good number of, I wouldn't say equal amount, probably more liberal friends. But I don't really know anyone that wants to ban all guns completely. I know a handful that, and I actually, when I've heard that position, I'm actually surprised. Like, oh, but usually it's not. It's somebody who grew up in a like where you're from, like Chicago,
Yeah,
where you don't. The only purpose you see for a gun is like somebody's. It's not a good purpose.
yeah,
Whereas, I mean, like I said, I grew up in East Texas. I think there's plenty of. If you live out in the country, one like the most obvious thing that I think a lot of conservatives say hunting, and I think that is accurate. But then also, you live out in the country by yourself. Yeah, you want to be able to defend yourself. That you can call the police, but it's going to take them a while to get down your country road and then go up your half-mile dirt driveway to get to your house to help you. So
yeah.
you are going to want a gun for self-defense. So I think even the liberal rural people I know would say, well, yeah, you should be able to have a gun.
Well, you know, people call guns like an equalizer, right? Like my wife's like 95 pounds, like tiniest thing in the world, and
Mhm.
she shoots pretty regularly. She actually owns multiple rifles, multiple pistols, and she's actually a better shot than me, which is a little embarrassing, but she just is. She's like naturally a fantastic shot. Um, and you know, I tell her the same thing, like in a real situation, like you're gonna need something to protect yourself, and this is what you've got. You know, hopefully, hopefully it never has to come to something like that. But you know, I do carry on a very regular basis, which is funny. You know, it's funny, Zach. Something that you can make a joke about maybe one time is the majority of people I meet that are on the right that are pro gun, they don't carry.
Yeah.
I have a buddy. His name's Nuance Bro. This is the guy I was telling you about that we go by screen names. His name's Nuance Bro,
Hmm.
and we do this thing called gear check, where we meet somebody on the right, and then we pat them down real quick to see if they're actually carrying. And if they're not, we bully them, because it's like, oh, you're pro gun, but you're not carrying. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty funny. So we do that quite a bit.
I'm gonna start doing that on the left and pat them down and say, "Where's your banned books?
Yeah,
What are
yeah.
you
There
reading
you
right
go.
now?"
Yeah, what are you
Um,
reading? Let me see your Kindle.
yeah.
Um,
Let's see what's on there. Tell me about tell me about Brave New World. What's the plot? Oh, you don't know? Okay. Um,
so on that topic, so like your like focus a lot as a concerned parent is school stuff, right?
mhm.
Specifically in GCISD, Grapevine, Colleyville ISD.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about like what your passion is there and what got you like kind of involved there.
Um, yeah. So when my oldest son started kindergarten, which was a few years ago, was right when Patriot Mobile, decided to what I say, purchase a few school boards, and they spent a few $100,000 in Grapevine, Colleyville ISD, Keller ISD, and Southlake, which I guess is called Carroll ISD, um, on campaigns for school board, which is an astronomically inflated amount of money to spend on, an unpaid volunteer position on a school board. They spent, I think, $300,000 in those three races to say, they're pushing porn and CRT, and they're making your kids be trans, and all this kind of stuff. So that kind of, I guess, is what started me being interested in what
Hmm.
was going on, because you had it wasn't, and I think this is kind of what you get into in current revolt. It wasn't like a liberal versus a conservative. It was like you had two conservatives running for school board, and one was what I would just call just a your normal Republican, and then the other one would be like, that person is a socialist leftist CRT pushing pornographer, and they'd be like, "What? I voted for Trump twice," and they're like, "Yeah, right." Like it was insane because to me, just I was like, "What is even happening?" They're not even having a normal debate about policy or anything. They're just saying my opponent is an irredeemable leftist demon, and I don't care if they're a Republican. That they're that phrase that's now popular, rhino, and um, watching that and then seeing people like, I mean, Tammy Nakamura, she's a failed reality TV star running for school board as if she uh, knows and cares about the school. Um, that kind of stuff was what was really frustrating to me to see from the outside. So that's when I started making videos talking about what was happening just in the school district. And then once they got in place and started doing their stuff, is when I really picked up making videos. And I think the first one that maybe took off more with that was when the Rotary Club of Colleyville was trying to donate dictionaries to the school, something they had done for over a decade. And because of the school board and their book policy, they couldn't donate the dictionaries because the dictionary has objectionable words in it. And the board was blocking these donations, and the Rotary Club was like, I mean, imagine the Rotary Club. It's not in Colleyville, no less. The Rotary Club of Colleyville, I guarantee you, is not made up of a bunch of leftists. And these guys are like, hey, we're just trying to donate these dictionaries like we've done for 10 years now. And the school board's like, you pedophile elitists or whatever they were, calling them. And the donation was delayed and delayed and delayed until somebody told me about it. Somebody from the Rotary Club was like, hey, because I had been making these videos. So I talked to a few people from the Rotary Club to make sure that I was not just talking shit, that I know what I was talking about, and made a video about it. And even from when I had found out about it to right before when I made the video, the school board changed their position because the Rotary Club said, hey, we're going to donate these books to another school. We've given them to Grapevine Colleyville ISD for 10 years. We're going to take them to Fort Worth ISD because they will take this donation. And so then the school board was like, oh, okay, well, we'll give all the teachers have to send home with the kids a permission slip for the kids to opt out of getting these dictionaries if you think they'll be too objectionable. And if the parents sign it, then they can get a dictionary. And so then they acted like, see, our book policy works, and everything's totally fine here. But that's the kind of stuff that just felt like, this is insane. You guys are going too crazy. Like, I understand the three books that you always see on Twitter as the examples, they're like graphic novels where they're
You're
like,
talking
look at
about
this.
the ones with like the random penises and the what's it called?
It's like a
There's like a guy
strap
missing a
on.
leg. Yeah, the
There's
strap-ons
like
and
one with a
guys are
strap
missing
on.
legs and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, I think this is where I have to, hey, let's not argue to keep those books. First of all, these are graphic novels. These are drawings, not words.
Mhm.
So I'm not arguing to keep those books. If that book's in the library, and I don't think any of those were ever in GCISD, if those were in a public school library, yeah, take them out.
So
But
you would
when,
you would agree on that on like
oh yeah,
the graphic stuff
I
is
think
like that's not
anybody
appropriate for
anybody
kids.
arguing for these graphic novels with that kind of stuff, I think I can't agree with that. That's just too much. But those are, again, that's like three or four books that I've that
Hmm.
always gets used as the example, and then that leads into we're banning Brave New World, The Bluest Eye, stuff that's like literature because the policy is written in such a way that it's overreaching and
Do you think
insane.
that the reaction from the right on some of this stuff is because they've seen so much of this extremism on the left, like what you're talking about with like the very graphic novels, right? Or like recently I forget what ISD it was. There's a like a pansexual or LGBTQ flag hanging up with the school's logo on it, right? And then like you've got all these teachers making TikToks of like kids like doing pledges to like gay flags and stuff. And so like maybe these are isolated incidents, but the right we like blow it up so much that it becomes something that it just drives fuel to like maybe in what you would maybe describe as like overreaching as far as like protections and bans. Do you think that's part of it?
I definitely think the right wing infrastructure of social media and talk radio, and um, then that next step of like the actual news, quote news like Newsmax, Fox News.
Current
Although
revolt, yeah.
I'm told, yeah, Current Revolt, same tier. Um, I'm told that those are Fox News is now liberal by my
Right.
conservative friends.
Yeah,
So
we've been called liberal too.
yeah,
I have a former candidate for office, Tom Slocum, that calls me liberal.
yeah.
I'm a liberal rag, as he
Yeah,
calls me.
anything that
Yeah.
remotely ever disagrees is liberal. But I do think
Right.
that that is true. That it's very easy to take one example and say, look at this kid. These kids saying the pledge to this flag. I haven't seen that personally, but somebody who is not involved in their school and maybe doesn't even have kids currently in school, which is what I think I see a lot of in my district. People who are disconnected from the actual school district that they live in, they see something on a video, and it could even be, it turns out, oh, that was in, Canada or some, not even in the United States,
Mhm.
or it was from, 2003 or whatever, and they go, another one. Look at that. This is terrible. This is why we have to elect this school board. And then they get flyers in the mail saying like, stop pedophile teachers, stop groomers, stop transing our kids, stop putting porn in the school libraries. And they go, oh, this is all connected. And they hear. I listen to conservative radio when I drive around, um, and it's man, they'll spend forever on a topic like that, just
Yeah.
talking it to death, like they're really good at always being exasperated, like, oh man, another one, I can't
Yeah,
believe it. And
part of it's like, and I say this as somebody who publishes this type of news, like, you've got to, you don't have to, but like, you're trying to like go for the next story, you're making people aware of what's happening. So I get it. But at the same time, like, I feel if this stuff is extreme, if these are extreme examples and they're isolated incidents, I never see, and I could, again, I could be wrong because I don't have a lot of left leaning friends, but I never see anybody on the left saying, hey, like, this is our guy, or this is somebody that's on our quote unquote team. Like, hey, man, like, don't do pledges to a gay flag. Like, just do it to like, hey, man, don't provide kids like books of with dildos and people like having sex. Like, don't provide that to 6-year-olds, right? Like, I never see the left policing themselves, right? And maybe you could say the same thing about the right at some points. But I even disagree with that because I do see a lot of moderates trying to police people on the right. They get called rhinos, of course, but I never see the left policing each other. Am I
I,
wrong there?
I think, at least in these specific instances, what I usually see is people saying kind of what I just said, which is like, hey, that example is from British Columbia in 2009, so it was presented as, look what's happening in our schools. And so there's not a, I think it sounds like what you're saying is there's not a denunciation like, hey, this shouldn't be happening in schools. Instead, they're saying, hey, that didn't happen in schools. It happened, 15 years ago in another country. And then, so then what happens is this is kind of a disconnect in the communication, because then what gets heard on the right is, so you're okay with it, as opposed to, no, I'm telling you that didn't, like, what you're alleging happened and is happening isn't happening. But I do think, I do want to say, I think you're right. There is a hesitancy to also to say, yeah, and it shouldn't happen. Um, so I think that maybe that's what you're describing is somebody sees something, and what we, not to imply that we have a that we're the only ones that do this, but I feel like what the left does is say, here's a fact check, and this happened in a long time ago and is a different place, and instead of addressing the emotional response, which is what I feel like the right is usually going for, just based on my listening to talk radio and that kind of stuff. It's like, it's not about the date this happened and how many students there were and blah blah blah. It's about, it makes me mad that anybody did this, and I want you to tell me that my feelings are correct and it shouldn't have happened, because now I'm upset.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand that some of these don't come from our districts, right? Especially in Texas. But like, I'll give you an example, and it's unfair for me to do this because you can't see what I'm referring to. But like we wrote an article in 2022 where Frisco ISD posted a story, and it was to students, and it says self-love reminders, and it says toys can help overcome sexual anxiety, and it shows what presumably looks like a child sitting on a bed. This is a drawing, by the way, but a child sitting on a bed with a vibrator next to her.
This
And
is the school district did this?
yes, and the school district ended up apologizing. They claimed they got hacked. I remember I put in a an open records request to kind of get details on the hack, and they were like, "Well, this is proprietary or something like that." It didn't. I think it
Mm.
kicked back or something. But Frisco ISD Government Affairs had to bring it up in a big post. Jared, my favorite rep, Jared Patterson, made a stink about it, of course, rightfully so. But I'll quote it. The original post shared an image of a girl on a bed with a sex toy with several phrases including, quote, toys can help you overcome sexual anxiety. And then the caption of the post said, here's why a little menage a moi is just what you need. And it included a 50% discount code for a sex toy. So like,
Whoa.
and this was Frisco ISD, right? So
I
like,
just Googled it. Yeah, it looks like so this was they claimed to be hacked, then said a district Facebook account apologized saying it learned a staff member shared the post without reading the image text.
yeah. So like, and I can actually understand that excuse. I get it, right? But this is the kind of stuff where like, this is what I mean, where like the parents see this and they're
Yeah.
already like on edge, and they're like, oh my God, the school district's promoting sex toys for children, right? And of course they're gonna blow up, right? Of course, right? And I didn't really see anybody, because Frisco ISD does have some left-leaning school board members, like not really like disavowing it too much, at least to the point where like it was it was noticeable, right? So like that's an example of like something happening. And then of course you got some of these books, right? We cover Frisco ISD a lot because we have a lot of viewers there, and so they send us stuff. Um, but yeah, I think part of just the reaction is like the right doesn't see people on the left kind of like speaking against it, right? And alternatively, maybe you don't see a lot of people on the right so much disavowing certain things that are maybe considered extreme, right?
Yeah, that's what I think. I think this what we're talking about right now tells me, if people get their information from these two separate places, um, well, the people on the right are not going to highlight, hey, this person on the left disavowed this or whatever, and alternatively, someone on the left's not going to be like they're not going to say somebody on the left is not going to promote, hey, current revolt is, you know, denouncing Brent Hagenboo. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, Hagen.
Like that's not going to
It
be,
varies.
yeah, that's not going to be promoted as a right wing story, I think. What's going to be promoted is like all of his endorsements and all the establishment right wing people that are pushing him. And so it's going to be like, look, everyone on the right is behind this craziness. And so I think similarly, it looks like everyone on the left, or if somebody does, I think we've also gotten to a place where if someone, let's say, I don't know the Frisco school board, but let's say there's somebody who's known as being on the left, and they say this should not have happened. This is, bad. Blah blah blah. The headline's not going to be, hey, this person denounces this. It's going to be like even the far left
Right.
socialist libtard had to admit that this was terrible. So it's like I think both parties have learned also this from Trump that like you just don't apologize ever. You just always accuse the other side of something and never say, "Oh yeah, my party did that," or like somebody on my side did something dumb or wrong. You say, "Well, what about you?" And you flip it around because if you say, "Hey, that shouldn't have happened," then it's like even the libs are admitting that this happened and this is terrible, and like it doesn't. There's no benefit to either side to say like I don't think I mean do you feel like when you call somebody out on the right people aren't like thank you Tony
Oh
uh,
man, I could
you're
tell you
doing the
infinite
Lord's work, or do
stories.
they say hey man you're helping the libs right now?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny you bring that up because while you're saying all this, I'm like, I'm like going back into conversations that are related to this. So like that all depends, right? Like if I'm exposing like, and we've done a lot of extramarital affair exposures, right? And if I'm exposing one for like a certain rep, my readership base is like, yeah, like great job, like get them, like thanks for
Hmm.
exposing this, like blah blah blah, right? But you bring up like the affair of Ken Paxton or like Brian Slayton was a big one. I'm sure you're aware of the scenario behind that and what all happened
Is
with that.
is that the
Uh,
one with his staffer?
yeah, the staffer.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Brian Slayton, like to give context, he was like the right wing darling. He was the farthest right wing, most conservative Christian rep in the state of Texas, right? Like
Hmm.
he was the pinnacle of what like ideology, what ideology we want our politicians, our Republican politicians to be at. And he got caught diddling a staffer.
Hmm.
Um, and uh, providing her plan B and all this stuff, right? Like the worst case scenario you can be in. And we reported on it. And not only did I lose subscriptions, but I had a county, a GOP county, actually in his county, demand that I issue an apology to him, to his parents, and to the county. And this was before it went to like investigation and all that, right? We had
Hmm.
just reported that it happened. And I remember I remember being like, man, if this was like somebody else, like what somebody would call a quote unquote rhino, people would be cheering it on. But because it's Brian Slayton, I'm a bad guy for giving ammunition to the left, even though it's the same crime, right? Or
Hmm.
quote unquote crime. You arguably is or isn't a crime, but like quote unquote crime, same sin, I guess. But they were mad because it was Slayton, and I remember telling this woman who was with that GOP there, and I said, I'll make you a deal. If it turns out that this guy is innocent, and I will not only apologize, but I will make $1,000 donation to your GOP club. I said, but if he's found guilty and he steps down, I want an apology from you, and I want you to donate to my rag.
Hmm.
And she basically told me to f myself. And then, of course, fast forward like a week or 2 weeks, whatever it was, he resigned, and the investigation did conclude that he engaged in the behavior. And she did apologize to me, and she did make a donation, which props to her. And we chat now, we're cool. But that's to this day, there's still people that insist that it was a setup, and it was all an establishment setup, and the girl was hired by Dade Phelan to take out Brian Slayton, like, and it's like, can we just going back to policing, right? Our own side, like, can we just say that, like, hey, we liked this guy, but what he did was abhorrent, and we don't want nothing to do with him, right? Can we just say that? Is it just not hard? Is it just hard just to be like, hey, this guy's horrible, like,
Yeah.
so, like, on, because like, I say this a lot with a lot of politicians. I say they could be very, very, very good legislators, but they could be horrible people, right? Um, I can name quite a few that I think are like that. But to this day, like he finally blocked me on Facebook, but like I still see people gassing him up and how amazing he is and liking his posts, and I'm like, this guy literally, he had just had a baby and he's cheating on his wife and
He's
all
fol-
alleged,
he- he's
and
following the footsteps of the president.
oh man, it's hard not to be a hypocrite too, because I work. So my background, I worked for the Trump campaign in 2016, the winning time. I didn't work in the
Hmm.
losing time, but I worked at the winning time.
That was what made him lose.
Yeah, because I wasn't there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a thing. I'll tell you a funny story real quick because I know we're getting low on time. I Working on that campaign was probably the most stressful time in my life. I had put on like 30 pounds. It was just horrible because Trump 2016 was nothing like Trump 2020 or now, where like in 2016 everybody hated you. Even Republicans hated you. Okay, like people would laugh at you if you liked Trump, and it was even worse if you worked for Trump. And I worked for Trump. Okay, and so I remember I had a policy for myself where like when I go to the gym, I just turn off my phone and I don't look at the screens and I just work out, right? And I remember I'm at the gym and everybody's like stopping and looking at the screen, and I finally like turn on my phone and my phone's just blown up, and it's the time with the scandal, the I'll grab her by
Hmm.
the bus video. You know which one I'm talking about,
Yeah.
right? And they'll let you do it if you're a star, you can do it, whatever it was. And I remember thinking, we're done, like we're fucking done, like this campaign's over. And of course, my boss emails me and is like, "Hey, emergency conference call in an hour." So I go home and we hop on, and he won't even address it, right? He's just like, "We're full steam ahead. If you want off the ship, like hang up and be done now." And
Hmm.
nobody hung up, right? And then I was like, hey, can I talk to you afterwards? So after the conference call, we were talking. I'm like, hey, we're fucked, man. I was like, donations are gonna seize up. Like nobody's gonna want to volunteer because I handled a lot of like the volunteer efforts. I was like, nobody's gonna want to volunteer, blah blah blah. And he's like, man, I don't know. The next day was I think it was the second best fundraising day for us in his campaign. The day after that video. Okay, I had women calling me, the Women for Trump, some people in the Women for Trump campaign. They called me and they said, "Oh, that's nothing. That's how women talk all the time. Like you should hear the way we talk in the locker room." And I was just like, "This is incredible." Like, okay, all right, like I'll take it. I'll take it. You know, it's one of those things where like I don't like like people generally fall into I'm against the sin, but only if it's my guy doing it or not doing it,
Yeah.
right? If
Yeah.
it's my enemy doing it, then yeah, like drag him, right? Drag him. But if it's my
Yeah.
guy, he made a mistake. It's a personal matter.
He was
Um,
young. Yeah.
he was young. It's just locker room talk. Like, and it's just like I get it. I get it. That's just how it goes. It's about winning. Politics is war.
Yeah.
So I get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That is what it is. Well, I just want to say also, uh, uh, Chris Tomlinson in the Houston Chronicle had a good article today about the Democrats need to be condemning Henry. How do you say his last name? Cuellar.
Cuellar. Yeah,
Henry
Henry
Cuellar.
Cuellar.
They like he should be being condemned for what he's accused of, and being indicted. So I think to your point, it does go, both sides. That
It's hard.
if you have
Yeah.
something happen, you're like, he's my guy. Let's wait for the information to come out. And if it's not your guy, you're like, it's pretty obvious. We don't need to
Yeah, drag
drag
him.
this out.
Yeah, yeah, kill him. Yeah, disavow. But yeah, and it's hard for people to give the other side a win, right? And apologizing or admitting fault feels like giving a win, right? Like we broke the story on the Sheila Jackson Lee audio. I don't know if you ever listened to that, where she's just like ragging on her staff.
I think I
I'll have to send
just
it to you.
did you.
It's
I think that's one of your only posts on TikTok, and I think I just
yeah,
watched. But it's
yeah,
all edited.
it,
It's all you can't hear it because
yeah.
it
We
was
had to
like
put
Whoopi
beeps
Goldberg
over
reading
it.
it, so it's all edited out. So it's just like bleep boop
Yeah,
boop
you have
boop.
to. We have the uncensored version on our website, but she just like lays into her staff, and admittingly, it's very funny. And I kind of get where she comes from. Like, if you get fed up enough, you're just like, you fucking suck, like blah blah blah. Like, so
Yeah.
it's kind of funny actually. I remember when I got it, I was laughing. Um, and by the way, the guy that leaked the audio, he died. He died like
No.
3 months after the audio leaked. Yeah, I'm not. This is not like right wing conspiracy either. He's dead. Like you can Google it. Like his name was Jerome. Like if you Google Jerome Sheila Jackson Lee audio death, like it comes. I think Houston Chronicle wrote it up. Like the dude's dead. So it is
Oh,
kind of
weird.
it is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, like yeah, I didn't see. People really didn't hop off her campaign. They were still full speed ahead on her. She ended up losing her mayor run for mayor in Houston, but now she's running for was it Congress again? Her old
Oh, I
seat
don't
for
know.
re-election, and she's probably gonna win. So like back to what we're saying. We're just going in circles here, but yeah, like it's hard to admit fault for the others, and it's hard to like give the other side a win, especially with how heated politics has gotten nowadays. Like people just don't talk. Like I feel like a conversation like between you, like this is very rare. Admittingly, I asked several other much 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 farther leftists to do a podcast, and they refused. They're like, no way. They're like, this is a trap. You're gonna get me, and I'm like, man, I just want to talk.
I mean, I can understand that
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
feeling though of being like, what do you want to talk about, and what are you trying to get at me? I mean, the reason I was like, yeah, is just from seeing like that you are putting out stuff about people on the right doing stuff as well as people on the left. Um, what your own personal view is not hindering you from saying, hey, this guy on the right did this. And I think that is definitely a thing that people have to be able to do, because I think what you're saying is like almost a cliche now to say, oh, people don't talk anymore. But then when you try, people don't, even you saying to me, hey, it's not a trap. We just want to talk. That still is like, okay, let's see. Like I believe you, but
But
let's
yeah,
see.
we're gonna see.
So I think it is good to be able to talk, but it's definitely can feel like that. Like, well, let's see what's going to happen. How you gonna? What are you going to hit me with? So I think, but that doesn't really help anyone, except like you alluded to what you said you're not going to do at the start, like not trying to, you know, ambush you and throw out some crazy questions.
Get
And
some
I
quick
think that
TikTok
that's
clips.
yeah
Owning,
to get
owning the libs.
right, exactly. And I think that that's what people are trying to do a lot of, and it might fire up, you know, your side, but it's not helpful to the discourse. To
Yeah,
God, I sound like a dork, but it's not helpful to the discourse to do that. People talking and going, you know, oh, I can see why you think that, even if I disagree. That that's way more helpful than any kind of like I tricked him and it showed he's a liar. Like that doesn't move anything in any
right.
direction. So uh,
Yeah, people need to talk more. And you're right, it's kind of a cliche, but I just think people need to have more sit-down conversations to try to meet in the middle or something. Otherwise, we're just going to keep. It's going to get
yeah.
worse. It's going to
Well,
get much worse.
it takes satirists to sit down and do that, I guess.
For sure. Well,
I think yeah. I think we didn't talk about any of the current news stories, but
I
I
know
think we had a
because we
good
had such a good
conversation.
conversation. We didn't get to talk about these electric subsidies for lawn equipment and stuff, but all that shit's boring. So this is more fun.
People can find out the news
Yeah, they
somewhere
can go
else.
read the website. I don't need to talk about it here.
Yeah.
So, well, we're coming up on time. Thanks for trusting me and coming on. I know it was kind of out of the way, and I appreciate you giving me an hour of your day. Um, where can people find? I know we kind of went over it at the beginning, but where can people find you?
Uh, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, at Zach Runs Things. And
And
it
that's ZACH with an H, right?
ZACH, that's the correct
Yeah.
spelling. Anyone with a K, you should not trust them
Right.
because it's short for Zachary, and you're changing it and changing that H to a K just while you're shortening it, which is highly suspect. So
Oh,
um,
interesting.
do not
That
trust
makes
those
sense.
people. They're
Got it.
probably a Lego maniac if they're from the
Ah,
80s. So don't trust those
okay.
Zachs.
Good to know.
So yeah, Zach runs things on all those platforms, and looking forward to getting a bunch of your followers being like this fucking lib. But maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe they'll be open to listening to some comedy that maybe pokes fun at them. We'll see.
Maybe you think your readers are gonna be like, how could you give him credibility? How could you be on his
I,
podcast?
I don't give myself enough uh, credit to think that people care that much about what I'm doing, but we'll see. Maybe,
I don't know,
maybe,
man. I'm looking at your pinned post, 51,000 views for an
yeah.
article about your Twitter. I think it's good stuff.
That was a great article, by the
It's pretty
way.
funny. It's pretty
That
funny.
that writer, she moved to, I believe, Washington, but Simone Carter, just she's an excellent writer. Not just because she wrote about me, but that was, I mean, a great choice, obviously. So she knows where the stories are.
Yeah,
Um,
she's got good taste.
but she's a great writer. But yeah,
It
um,
is a very good article. It's got all
great.
the. See, I get so bored with some of this writing. Like, there's no photos, there's no
Yeah,
video, and this
yeah,
article has all the clips in it. Like,
yeah,
it satisfies my like millennial brain where I can consume this and I don't get bored.
yeah.
Um,
I was very happy with how I was a little nervous. Not that I thought she was gonna, trick me, but I was like, it's going to be kind of boring, but it turned out so good. I was like, wow, thank you. Great,
yeah, it's
great
good.
profile. And I feel like it captured what I'm trying to do, which is like a quote that one of my friends pointed out that I hadn't really thought about was she asked me if people are mad at me. And I said, I haven't had any normal people mad at me.
Oh
And
man.
I didn't plan that ahead, like as a burn, but one of my friends was quoting that back to me, and I was like, that's a solid burn, and it is true. I don't feel like anyone that has watched my video and been pissed has been a normal person.
Yeah,
So
I have I have something similar. Somebody brought that up. They're like, "Man, you got some people that really hate you, Tony." And I'm like, "Yeah, there's a lot of really awful people that hate
yeah,
me. They're just
yeah,
like bad human beings, and they don't like me, and I'm okay with that, I think."
yeah.
So yeah, same. I know exactly where you're coming from. So, well, Zach, it's been awesome. This has been a lot of fun. I think we had planned for 30 minutes, and we're at an hour now. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you going into your day. Um, you know, thanks for everybody for listening. You can find us currentrevolt.com, Instagram currentrevolt, all the same handles. So again, it's been great having you. Thanks for joining me.
All right. Thanks a lot,
Appreciate
Tony.
it.